By the time police entered the house in Columbus, Ohio, the ending had already happened. Dr. Spencer Tepe, 37, a dentist, and his wife Monique Tepe, 39, were dead from gunshot wounds. Their 2 children, ages 4 and 1, were alive, untouched, still inside the same walls where their parents had been killed. No shattered windows. No broken doors. No sign of a struggle that spilled outward. That absence mattered. This case does not begin with gunfire. It begins with routine. Spencer did not show up for work. Calls went unanswered. Concern grew methodically, not dramatically. A welfare check was requested. Officers arrived expecting silence, not confirmation. Inside, the crime scene spoke in negatives. No weapon recovered. No forced entry. No immediate explanation that fit the shape of the violence. Whoever came did not need to break in. Whoever left did not rush. From here, the narrative shifts backward, not to speculate, but to place events where they belong. Days earlier, the couple had marked 5 years of marriage. A public record of stability that now stood in contrast to what investigators were seeing on the floor of the home. And then there was the other timeline, the one that did not live inside the house. An ex-husband. A custody history. A vehicle captured on cameras. A distance measured not in miles, but intent. At this stage, no verdict had been delivered in a courtroom. But the framing had already begun elsewhere, through surveillance, phone data, and the quiet logic of access. The question was no longer what happened inside the house. It was who already belonged there, and why they came when they did. And that answer, investigators believed, was waiting outside the crime scene. Monique Tepe was born in 1985, and raised with a strong emphasis on family continuity and responsibility. Those who knew her described a woman oriented toward structure, schedules, routines, predictability. She valued stability, particularly where children were concerned. Before her second marriage, she had already navigated divorce, custody agreements, and the logistical realities of shared parenting. That experience shaped her priorities. She planned carefully. She documented decisions. She avoided chaos rather than confronting it. By the time she remarried, her life had narrowed toward domestic focus. Her days revolved around her children's needs, medical appointments, childcare transitions, and the quiet administration of a household that functioned without attention. Her footprint was private, deliberate, and small. Dr. Spencer Tepe, born in 1987, followed a different trajectory. Dentistry required precision, repetition, and compliance with systems. He trained for years, established a practice, and adhered to professional protocols that left little room for improvisation. Colleagues described him as reliable rather than charismatic, someone who showed up, followed procedure, and avoided risk. Outside work, his life contracted. Parenthood limited leisure. Time was divided between his practice and home. There is no record of volatile behavior, substance abuse, or financial instability. What exists instead is consistency, the kind that rarely attracts attention. Together, they formed a blended household anchored by routine. 2 children, ages 4 and 1, structured their days. Mornings were predictable. Nights ended early. Surveillance later confirmed this rhythm: regular arrivals, familiar vehicles, no anomalies. That normalcy matters. It establishes competence without expertise. It removes recklessness as a starting assumption. When investigators later reconstructed timelines, they did not find disorder preceding the crime. They found continuity, abruptly interrupted. The contrast is critical. What happened did not grow out of visible collapse. It arrived from outside an ordinary life, and stayed. The call did not come from panic. It came from concern. On December 30, 2025, colleagues of Dr. Spencer Tepe contacted authorities in Columbus, Ohio, after something felt wrong. Spencer had failed to show up for work. No messages. No explanation. For a man known for routine and reliability, the silence was immediate cause for alarm. Police were dispatched to the Tepe residence in the Wineland Park neighborhood, a quiet residential area just north of downtown Columbus. The home sat still. No noise. No movement. No visible signs of disturbance from the outside. When officers entered the house, they found what no welfare check is meant to uncover. On the second floor, they discovered the bodies of Dr. Spencer Tepe, 37, and his wife Monique Tepe, 39. Both had been shot multiple times. The wounds were immediately recognized as fatal. The scene showed no forced entry. Doors were intact. Windows unbroken. But what stopped officers cold was not only what they found. It was who was still inside the house. The couple's 2 children, ages 4 and 1, were present during the killings. They were found alive and physically unharmed. Police confirmed the children were not injured and were quickly removed from the home and placed into the care of family members. The fact that the children were spared would later become one of the most chilling elements of the case. As investigators secured the scene, forensic teams began their work. No weapon was recovered inside the house. There was no evidence of a struggle downstairs. Nothing appeared ransacked. This was not a random act. This was targeted. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood and began collecting surveillance footage. Cameras from nearby homes captured a person walking near the Tepe residence during the early morning hours, between approximately 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. The individual appeared deliberate. Not lost. Not hurried. Familiar with the area. Vehicle footage became critical. Investigators identified a car connected to the suspect's movement, later traced through license plate data. That trail led them far from Ohio, across state lines, toward Illinois. Attention soon turned to someone already known to the victims. The shift began with a license plate. Surveillance footage reviewed by investigators captured a vehicle near the crime scene in Dublin, Ohio, during the narrow overnight window surrounding the killings. Detectives ran the plate through state databases. The registration returned to Michael David McKee. From Dublin, Ohio to Chicago, Illinois, the distance is approximately 355 miles. By car, the drive averages 5.5 to 6 hours, depending on traffic and weather. That timeline fit cleanly within the period investigators were reconstructing. The route required no flights, no checkpoints, no records beyond tolls and cameras. A subsequent search of McKee's property followed. During that search, investigators recovered multiple firearms. Columbus Police Chief Elaine Bryant later confirmed publicly that one of the weapons recovered was similar to the firearm investigators believed was used to kill Monique Tepe and Dr. Spencer Tepe. The similarity was based on caliber and class, not conjecture. The weapon was seized for forensic comparison. By then, McKee's residential history had already expanded the picture. He had relocated to Chicago within the previous 18 months. In July, property records showed he purchased a penthouse apartment in the city. Before Chicago, his employment trail led to Las Vegas, where civil court filings show he is currently being sued for medical malpractice. The case remains active. This professional mobility stood in contrast to his personal history with Monique. The two met while attending Ohio State University and married in 2015. After the wedding, they moved to Virginia for McKee's medical residency. 7 months later, the relationship fractured. Monique returned to Ohio. In May 2017, she filed for divorce, citing incompatibility. A judge finalized the divorce 1 month later. Now, years after that legal separation, investigators were reviewing a new crime scene. Police reports documented at least one apparent gunshot wound to Monique's chest and multiple apparent gunshot wounds to Spencer, age 37. The records did not yet declare motive. They only showed proximity, geographic, historical, and forensic, tightening all at once. By mid-2024, Michael David McKee was living in Chicago, having purchased a penthouse apartment months earlier. What shifted the investigation was not biography, but behavior. An unsealed police affidavit later revealed activity that predated the murders by weeks. On December 6, security footage captured McKee outside the Tepe residence in Ohio for several hours. The timestamps were precise. The first appearance was logged in the early afternoon. He remained in the vicinity as daylight faded. That same day, Spencer and Monique Tepe were not home. Verified travel records placed them at the Big Ten championship game in Indiana. The absence was documented through ticketing data and travel timing. During that window, surveillance footage allegedly showed McKee entering the home. No forced entry was recorded. No alarm was triggered. He remained inside for a limited period. Footage then showed him leaving the property hours later, again without visible urgency. Investigators later described the entry as unauthorized, but methodical. Nothing was reported missing at the time. No police report was filed. The moment passed unnoticed. This event was logged retroactively, only after the murders reframed its relevance. The affidavit outlined it not as an isolated incident, but as a temporal marker, evidence of familiarity with the home, its access points, and its rhythms. When investigators reconstructed the timeline, December 6th became a fixed reference. It established prior presence. It established opportunity. It established planning proximity without asserting intent. The case, at this stage, remained procedural. But the past had now entered the present, on camera, time-stamped, and unambiguous. Michael David McKee's professional life began long before the events in Ohio. He grew up in Zanesville, Ohio, where he attended Catholic high school, a structured academic environment rooted in tradition and discipline, according to local school records. In September 2005, he enrolled at Ohio State University, the same semester his future wife, then Monique Tepe, began her own studies. By June 2009, both had completed their bachelor's degrees. McKee's degree paved the way for medical school, a requirement for anyone aiming to become a doctor. He remained at Ohio State for medical training, earning his medical degree in 2014. After graduation, he entered a general surgery internship at the Ohio State Wexner Medical Center, a first professional step for physicians seeking surgical specialization. Following internship, McKee entered a 5-year surgical residency in Virginia, where he developed advanced skills in operating rooms and clinical care. After residency, he pursued further specialization with a 2-year fellowship in vascular surgery at the University of Maryland Medical Center, completing that program in October 2022. His training culminated in licensure across multiple states. By October 2024, McKee held an active medical license in Illinois, allowing him to practice as a vascular surgeon. Previous licenses show he was also authorized in California and Nevada, where civil court filings linked him to a medical malpractice lawsuit in Las Vegas in 2023. Employment records placed him at OSF's St. Anthony Medical Center in Rockford, Illinois, in 2025, where he worked shortly before his arrest. This educational and professional path, structured and credentialed, established McKee as a highly trained physician. Yet, in this investigation, those same credentials intersected with behavior outside the clinical setting, forcing investigators to document chronology and competency without presuming motive or intent. The first warning sign appeared on the morning of January 2, 2025, when Dr. Spencer Tepe, a dentist in Columbus, Ohio, did not arrive for work. This was unusual. According to coworkers, Spencer was known for being punctual and rarely missed a workday without notice. By mid-morning, repeated calls to his phone went unanswered. Around 11 a.m., the office manager at the dental practice contacted Columbus police, requesting a welfare check. The concern was simple and factual. Spencer had not shown up, had not called, and could not be reached. This absence broke his normal routine. Officers were dispatched to the family's home later that day. When they arrived, there was no response at the door. The house was quiet. No movement. No voices. What stood out immediately was what should have been happening inside a home with 2 young children, and wasn't. Police entered the residence as part of the wellness check. Inside, they discovered Monique Tepe, 39, and Spencer Tepe, 37, both deceased. Initial observations indicated gunshot wounds. The scene showed no signs of forced entry, suggesting the person responsible may have entered without resistance. The couple's 2 children, ages 4 and 1, were found alive inside the home. They were physically unharmed. The children had remained inside the house for an unknown period of time after the killings. Family sources later confirmed the children were found with the family dog, which was also unharmed. Investigators noted the contrast immediately: extreme violence in one part of the house, and untouched life in another. The children were removed from the home and placed into protective care that same day. By early afternoon, the home was secured as a crime scene. Detectives documented entry points, collected shell casings, and began reconstructing timelines. The absence from work had triggered the call. The silence inside the house confirmed something far worse. This was no random discovery. It was a chain reaction, routine broken, concern raised, and a welfare check that revealed a double homicide, with surviving children at the center of it. The break in the case came from cameras, not confessions. As detectives viewed footage from security cameras in the neighborhood, they discovered that in the early hours of January 1, 2025, between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., surveillance cameras near the Tepe's home recorded a single figure moving through an alley close to the property. The person appeared multiple times, walking back and forth, pausing, then leaving the area. The timing matched the window investigators believed the killings occurred. Detectives reviewed footage from nearby homes and traffic cameras. Frame by frame, they tracked the individual's movement. One camera captured a vehicle leaving the area shortly after 5 a.m. The license plate was partially visible. That partial plate was enough. By January 3, 2025, Columbus detectives identified the vehicle and traced it to Michael David McKee, Monique Tepe's ex-husband. Records showed the car traveling north after the killings. Investigators followed the trail across state lines. On January 5, 2025, McKee was located and arrested in Rockford, Illinois, about 70 miles northwest of Chicago. He was taken into custody without incident. Police later confirmed multiple firearms were recovered in his home during searches connected to the arrest. One was similar to a weapon used at the crime scene. During a press briefing, Columbus Police Chief Elaine Bryant announced the charges. McKee was charged with 4 counts of aggravated murder, 2 counts for each victim, covering premeditation and commission of the crime, and 1 count of aggravated burglary with a firearm suppressor. Prosecutors stated the evidence included surveillance footage, vehicle data, and digital records placing him near the home during the critical hours. Investigators also revealed that McKee had traveled repeatedly between Illinois and Ohio in the weeks leading up to the murders. This travel pattern, combined with earlier surveillance footage from December, strengthened the timeline. If convicted, McKee faces life in prison. Under Ohio law, the sentence carries a minimum of life with parole eligibility after 32 years, and a maximum of life with parole. The court will determine sentencing if the case reaches that stage. The arrest did not answer every question. It narrowed them. The footage showed movement. The records showed planning. And the charges marked the moment the investigation shifted, from finding who did it, to proving how and why.